feel?
I feel very strongly about this, and I feel like there's so much that goes into like balancing a game and having a game like this where it's you can have multiple heroes. Like there's hasn't really been like I mean, I guess there's other FPS games that allow you to play multiple of the same thing, but like as far as esports, like really big esports games are concerned, it's like you play League of Legends and it's like, oh, like you can have one thing. Like if someone else wants to play that champion, you can't play it.
Right.
It's the
Hero
same thing
bans.
like other Blizzard games, same thing. You can't have like multiple of the same thing. So this is kind of a new thing a little bit where it's like, oh, I could just run double this, and double this, and I just win everything. You know what I mean? Like people need to take a step back and say, maybe I don't need to introduce something crazy like a hero limit, and maybe I just need to take time to figure out what counters this. So, like, there is a counter to double Winston, double Lucio, double Reaper. It exists. People just need to take the time to find out what the counter is and then start running it to break that meta. There's meta breakers and meta starters all the time. Mm-hmm. Literally all the time. That's why that's totally where agree. This came from. And I think as it's our job as people in a beta to not start reinforcing things that change the game on our own and give feedback to Blizzard by saying, this is what needs to change about this OP combo. Balance it. If you don't balance it, we're going to do something on our own. It's a drastic measure to take after we've already, after we've already given our feedback.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the really important thing to take home from this is we don't understand this game yet. We don't know what all the right builds and all the right comps are going to be. We're not going to know that for a very, very long time, and it's going to continue to change throughout the years. We're going to get more heroes, we're going to get more patches, but beyond all that, just with what we have today, with the characters we have today, like the competitive scene is just barely chipping at the surface of, I think, where we're going to be a year or 2 or 3 down the road. So yeah, casting it, I felt like it felt terrible. Like it didn't feel good at all casting that comp. It didn't look like you guys were having a ton of fun with it either. And then all of a sudden there's all this negativity swirling around. Oh, we need to implement hero limits. We need to do this. We need to do that. 2 days later, the counter is found, right? I don't know. I hesitate to say the counter, but this idea of like, oh wait, you can actually destroy Winston's shields. It doesn't take that long if your whole team is focusing on a shield to just break it. You can destroy that thing in like a second. Junkrat is a character that people were saying is near useless in competitive play and in pubs. Like people saying Junkrat is terrible. All of a sudden, Junkrat has a new purpose in life, which I thought was like super exciting. Like I was watching Pluppy, or maybe it was Timothy lol on Twitch, scrimming against you guys, Envy, and they were bringing out the Junkrat, and it was very effective against the double Winston strategy. So I think we learned that no tier list is set in stone. We know very little right now. Compositions are going to change and evolve over time. And just to comment on the max one hero per team limit discussion, I come from FPS games that competitive FPS communities where almost every single time there was a comp mod that drastically changed the game for our liking. That is not the ideal scenario. You don't want that in any shape or form if you can possibly avoid it. And a lot of the TF2 guys bring this up as well. Some of the class restrictions in TF2, they say the reason TF2 competitive didn't grow is because competitive TF2 looked completely different to pub TF2. So my point is, I come from a position where it's like, yes, we should have one character limit on the table, but as like a completely last resort that we go to only if the meta becomes so stale and so boring that we think it's like absolutely necessary.
Yeah, this should have been a response to a strategy being so dominant that it's unfixable for months of tournaments. Not literally one weekend happens where a comp is played and it's like, oh, this is boring to cast and not fun to watch, but it's the meta. It's like, no, watch that for a month straight with no help from Blizzard whatsoever, and then we can talk about that being a thing.
Yeah, Stoop, I mean, as a player, isn't this part of the fun part of, problem solving these type of things as a team, like trying to figure out how to counter things, or, if there is somebody that seems to have your number, trying to figure out how to beat that, and coming up with the right compositions. I mean, that's part of being a player, right? In a team.
I mean, like I said, the only reason that this comp was even like good was because people ran Genji all the time,
Hmm.
and that just means that Genji is really strong. Not this specific comp. If people stop using Genji, they try to start using a comp that counters this comp, and they do it. It's just how the game is. You don't need this one hero rule limit. A lot of people argue that the one hero rule will make do for like more creative comps. Whereas, yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
Maybe down the line when there's like 50 or 60 different heroes to choose from, maybe because at that point there probably will be some heroes where like they're just really strong and you probably wouldn't want to run a comp without them, and
yeah,
you
maybe.
you don't you can kind of like just use that one and then another one that isn't as strong that complements it really well, or maybe find a combination of two other heroes that complement each other really well, even though they're not very good individually,
Mhm.
etc. And it's like if uh, if one hero is really strong and there's tons of heroes to choose from, and you only want to pick that hero, and you can pick it twice, then yeah, people will do it. Maybe then you need a one hero comp, and
Yeah.
right now there's just not that variety. So it's
And
probably better to be able to pick whatever you want, however many times you want, and create all these creative comps to counter the other comps that are really strong. It's just, I don't know. It just seems like it's part of the game. It's part of how Blizzard wants the game to be. I don't see them changing it because, like I said, it's just part of the philosophy of the game being focused on heroes and being able to play whatever you want,
mhm.
whenever you want.
Yeah,
Well, and I
with
mean, let's get more like there's two, three, maybe three heroes in the game that can heal.
That's a big one too.
Like one
Yeah,
of them can solo heal. Lucio can solo heal in a game. That's it. I mean, you could probably solo heal with Mercy, but you won't be getting as much out of it as you could if you were solo healing with Lucio.
yeah.
Like introducing hero limits into the game, not a good idea when that's a thing.
here's what's gonna happen if there's a hero limit right now, at least. Uh, it's just going to be Lucio Zenyatta 100% of the time. Maybe every now and then you'll see a Mercy Farah combo. But right now, with Soldier being buffed and Zenyatta being really good and Genji being really good, you're pretty much always going to see just a Genji Zenyatta.
And that still goes then back to the same problem where it's like you're seeing the same thing all the time.
Exactly. It's kind
It
of
doesn't solve anything.
yeah, it's like the argument that people are using. It just goes back on them because it's just going to be Zenyatta Genji like almost all the time. There's not going to be any comp like the double Winston or whatever to counter it. So you have to just run it yourself.
I mean, you have less combinations of possible solutions too.
Yeah.
When you give that limitation, and I don't know. For me, it's just like, hey guys, just let's just give Jeff and the design team a chance, right? Ideally, having doubles, or ideally down the road, hopefully that we won't have characters that are just like so OP or whatever that will we'll want to run two or three of them and that sort of thing. So let's let them get to that, or let the game get to that point, or not get to that point, and hopefully the design team will create a perfect game, and that will never be an issue, and then we'll just have just all these things to choose from, and come up with all kinds of crazy solutions and things like that. I mean, I don't even think we're to the point yet. I mean, you can tell me or not, Stoop. We're you're mentioning Bastion, right? I mean, maybe Bastion's just good, just in first, objective points and things like that. I don't see like crazy comp switches regularly within games yet, and maybe that's in the future that could be what Overwatch is. We need as many tools as we can that are adapted to the maps.
And just because Blizzard puts something in the game that allows you to do a specific thing doesn't mean that they're like, do this all the time.
Yeah.
Like there's an ability to turn off cooldowns in the game. Are we supposed to now play tournaments with like no cooldowns?
Oh, I see what you mean. Just the custom
like
game
just
That would
because
be
they
fun.
put hero limits as an option in the game doesn't mean that they're like, okay, this is what we're trying to get you to do. Hint, hint. It's like there's other stuff in the game you can play all Torbjorn, or you can play. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't mean that that's what Blizzard wants for the competitive scene. It just means they're giving it to you as an option of something to do.
So I guess that this brings up an interesting discussion, which is, because the custom game features or the parameters that they give you that that they allow you to change right now has been a topic too, because people feel like if we give event organizers too many options, then they'll do things like one character limits, and then that somehow will define what the esport is for Overwatch, or what the competitive scene or default is for the Overwatch competitive scene. How much of that is really a concern for you guys? Like in terms of, let's just say Go To Gamers decides to try something, just as a fun event or a one-off event type of thing, or even you like FishStix like decide to try something, and then ESL does something a different week. Is that a huge concern for you guys that things will start becoming the default format?
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want to set a bad precedent this early in the game. When we did like our little for fun control point exhibition right when the beta came back,
Right.
and some of the pros were talking to me, like PMing me, like, "Hey, are you gonna ban custom skins?" And I'm like, "Ooh, I don't want to do that because I don't want to set the precedent that makes everyone else from now on just ban custom skins automatically. If it's not that big of an issue, they should be in the game. They're badass." So, I mean, I'm just using that as an example. But I mean, I also don't want to say that we shouldn't experiment, right? Like ESL did a test with a tournament with no prize money, with the one hero limit, and I mean, I think that's fine. Testing it out, experimenting, I think it's good. And then I'm always kind of looking to the players to define what we should be doing. If the vast majority of players wants to try X, Y, or Z, I'm always going to be open to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can make the argument right now that until Blizzard does come out with some type of esport structure and that sort of thing, who knows when that will be. I mean, there's nothing that's really official at this point. So, like you said, like FishStix, maybe it right now it is okay for folks to be trying all kinds of different things and experimenting. No, Shayed, I know you're very, very strong on not having it be one character. What do you think about that general concept of just experimentation with formats right now?
I think that it's way too early to do something that could be set as a precedent for later on. And that there's nothing stopping these teams from not playing those comps.
I mean,
Like if you have a problem with double Winston, double Lucio, double Reaper, don't play it. Just don't. Like, and agree to each other in scrims. Be like, hey, we're not gonna play it. Please don't you play it. Like, we're gonna write feedback to Blizzard collectively that says this needs to change. Like, go with your team and be like, what do we think needs to change about these heroes in order for this to not be the comp that we see all the time?
Oh, well,
I mean,
like,
even that
does
I don't think
Winston's
is like
bubble need to go on a higher cooldown so you can't rotate it as frequently? Like
even that is like, it just doesn't seem necessary. Like if you don't like it, and you think it's overpowered, just play it, and maybe you'll see why it's very strong, and you can find out counters to it. You can find weaknesses to it. Play against it. It's like I said, there's only like a few 21 heroes or whatever in the game, but not even all of them are fully explored. Like May and Junkrat until now, and hey, what do you know? Junkrat is pretty good against it. It's like I don't know. People are just too quick to think that one thing is overpowered just because it works very well against certain things, against people who haven't played against it very much or tried to figure out a way to counter it. I don't think you like need to get to the extreme of a one hero limit so early on. Like I said, maybe later down the line, it can become necessary, but that's only if the balance is off, right? Like only if the Blizzard doesn't do a good job of balancing the heroes, where people see the need to pick 2 or 3 of a certain hero just because it's that good, and there's no way to counter it. But right now, that's not the problem. People
and Blizzard
just
has been paying attention to what's going on. Like,
for sure.
My Reddit post is proof of that. Jeff Kaplan literally responded in like a few hours to what my issue was. Like, they're definitely paying attention to feedback. People just need to give it.
Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
if you look at the recent changes, the first one that comes to mind was the nerf to Widowmaker, and then the Mercy boost. That was like the first big OP thing in the competitive community's eyes. Then Mass Diva got nerfed, and like all these things have been addressed over time. Winston's all got the nerf a little bit. All these things that were kind of OP got nerfed over time, and actually we did end up going down the rabbit hole of the discussion of like, one hero limit. I want to ask specifically about this comp that we started the discussion about. I want to ask Stoop, do you think that there does need to be any? I mean, obviously we've already covered that people have figured out that there are really good ways of countering this, specifically with Junkrat, potentially also McCree is pretty good at it. But do you think that there's anything about Winston that's anti-fun or needs to be changed? Like, one of the common threads I've been seeing is just like the lightning, the electricity gun. Isn't that fun because it's kind of an auto aim? Is it too strong?
Yeah.
Like, what do you think about the comp, like in general? Given that there have been some counters, do you think it needs to? Do you think there needs to be any nerfing or buffing or anything?
Winston himself is definitely good. I don't think his lightning gun is too strong. It's just too easy, maybe. It's really not fun to play. Like, think about it. Reinhardt and Winston are probably the two strongest tanks in the game, right? And they're just so bland to play a lot of times. Reinhardt's actually not too bad, but Winston is just like, so you just jump in, put a shield down, hold left button in the general direction of the enemy, and yeah, it doesn't feel that
I think
good
it
to
does
play.
a little too much
That's
damage
something
for what it is still,
Yeah.
but yeah.
That about sums it up. And the argument against that is just for, I guess, casual players. It is a very friendly character for them. But I'm just saying, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, okay?
Oh, I know.
I mean,
that's about the
I'll-
only
I'll
thing that I
I'll
can
agree
say.
with Chris. Like, I think it's a good
Yeah.
thing that the game has characters to play that are characters that are easier to play. I think that's good for the lower
Yeah, that's
tier.
good, but it can't be. It can be easy to play, but it can't be that strong if it's easy to play. You know, like
Yeah.
there has to be, you have to at least make it so that you have to be really smart to play that character or something like that. You know, but with Winston, it's just you have a bunch of health, you have an ultimate that gives you 1,000 more health. That's it. You know, there's not much thinking to it. You just go in, you hold left mouse button, put a shield down. If you're gonna die, you press Q, and you don't die. It's like there's not as much thought process behind it
Mhm.
for how easy it is to play. So
So you
I
think
think
that
you-
you should have to aim more?
that, or just make Winston
Something.
like probably the easiest fix would just be to make it so that you have to aim a little bit more. You know, at least like have like a 30-degree cone in front of you where it does damage instead of it just doing damage to everything you see, pretty much. Something, you know.
I like a little
yeah.
less damage on it too. Nice.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm
I haven't
tired
thought
of
too much
getting
about it, but
sat on in one shot as Zenyatta. It's not fun.
it's just so
Yeah.
he's so easy. Like there's so many things that he counters that you don't have to do much to counter them for. You just switch to Winston and jump on them, right?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
Widowmaker can't really do much. Zenyatta literally can't do anything unless he has, you know, a lot of headshots and a Discord orb on you and teammates helping. It's just he counters so many things so easily, and he's so easy to play that it's like you can't not play him pretty much.
Yeah. It's not proportional. Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah.
Good assessment there. Okay, guys. Well, why don't we take some questions from you guys, the audience? You can tweet those to the overview GG, but we might just take some in the Twitch chat too, given that we don't have any yet on Twitter, but the folks that do tweet will have higher priority. So if you have any questions, go ahead and I guess post them in the Twitch chat or tweet them again to the overview GG. Let me just type it in here, and we'll just take a couple, and then we'll call it a day. All right. See if you guys see any too. Just go ahead and read them out. I'll give them a second. So I guess while we're waiting for maybe a couple of them, you know, one of the things that we had here too that maybe we can just briefly talk about is just oversaturation events. Stoop, as a player, do you think there are too many events right now?
Right now, maybe like the last phase, there were definitely weekends where there was like 3 or 4 tournaments that people could participate in, and I get it. You know, all these organizations are trying to cash in and, you know, get their piece of the pie, get people interested in their stuff, in their events, because the game is new and they're pretty sure that the game's going to be big. You know, it's just something that happens. Right now, what determines whether or not we play in an event is there a prize pool? It's, you know, that's not the biggest thing, but probably the biggest thing is, are people going to watch it? You know, is it gonna be worth putting our time into playing a tournament that has like 50 viewers or something? And it's hard for organizations to make that any better because that's what they're trying to do by having these events all the time. So I don't know. We don't think too much about it. We just like play Gosu Gamers because it's very consistent. There's a prize pool, and like a lot of people watch it. Other than that, we don't really play all that many other tournaments.
Okay.
It's just too much.
I'm kind of conflicted on this one because I've been around esports for a long time, and I've been working at Twitch for 5 years now. So I'm really obsessed with stream viewership. Like even before I started working at Twitch, I was already really obsessed with like tracking this and seeing what's big and what's growing and what's contracting. And I've always kind of been against the notion that oversaturation is like inherently bad. Like people point to it as like the reason that StarCraft declined in viewership. Well, StarCraft never really declined in viewership. It just kind of plateaued. So I've always kind of been against the general argument that oversaturation is inherently bad. That said, the worry is, will you cheapen IDDQD versus NV? Or, going back to the previous phase of the beta, not Enigma and Hubris played basically every weekend. So it kind of cheapens the uniqueness, the specialness of having these incredible teams playing against each other a little bit. So I don't really know where I stand here. I think in the long run, like, having lots of tournaments is good because it's going to allow the mid-tier teams also to get some time to shine. Like, Envy is not going to play, and Envy and Mixup are not going to play in every single tournament.
Yeah.
So it allows some of the mid-tier teams to get more experience, to get more spotlight on them, which I think is great. And I think we will start to see some of the tournaments, some bigger tournaments come through. Like right now, the Ghost Gamer Weekly prize pools are still very small. As soon as somebody comes with a few $1,000s in a one-off event, that's clearly going to be the more important event. It's going to get all the top teams playing in it. So I don't know. I guess I kind of didn't really give a definitive answer at all, one way or the other.
Yeah.
But it's a difficult and complex issue. I think it's good ultimately that we have a breadth of tournaments to choose from. But also at the same time, there is the concern of burning the viewers out. They can only watch the same teams play
And the
so many
players.
times.
And the players. That's kind of why I was asking Stoop. But the issue I have is just that we still don't have the users. Like, it's an esport, right? The esports still rely heavily on the game users as the viewer base. And, with Overwatch, once those betas go out, like in full-fledged, then I think I will feel a lot more comfortable with just, I guess, the number of events, or even events that have, like, large prize pools. It's great for you guys, Stoop, for sure. But from the standpoint of just efficiency, I would hate to have some organization that's not really into Overwatch, and they're just like, oh, let's come into Overwatch and sponsor an event. And then we do the event, viewership is like 1,000 viewers or something, like the total number of the viewer count is very, very low, and have them be turned off by that. Like, I don't want to get to that point. So it's just like, we just need the player base and viewer base to be at a certain point before we get a little ahead of ourselves. And that's the only thing I worry about in terms of oversaturation. Once that's all, the users will be there. I mean, everybody will love Overwatch the minute that they get a chance to play it. And I'm very, very confident about that. So once that happens, then we can just go, I think, crazy with all kinds of things and crazy prize pools. That'll be awesome. Okay,
my biggest concern is just player burnout, but other than that,
yeah.
All the players can play however much they want to, right? So
yeah,
there was one weekend last phase where Hubris played in 3 tournaments like in a row, and it's just
I mean, like,
never again.
You say like the players can choose whether or not they want to play, but like, these are competitive players. Like, you guys are competitive. You want to, if there's an opportunity for you to play something like at a high level, you're gonna do it no matter what, even if it's like you're tired or
Right, especially if another top team is playing.
Exactly.
You
never want to give another team an opportunity to step in on your limelight.
Exactly.
Fair enough.
Okay, we got a question
Actually,
from. Oh, go ahead, Bishop.
Well, I was just gonna say there's a great question in chat.
Yeah. Okay, actually, yeah, that's exactly the one I was gonna ask.
Yeah, I figured it was the first really good question we got. So,
what do you guys think of being really hard counters, and what do you guys think of there being really hard counters in general in an FPS game? Pyor mentioned that it's weird coming from Quake that there are enemies you literally can't fight; you just have to run.
It's pure, by the way.
Yeah,
Was it
pure.
pure? Whoop, my bad. My bad.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, his name is usually just Pure, but yeah.
It's definitely very different. It's like, obviously, just if you look at Overwatch, it's not gonna be for the generic old school FPS player. You know, we saw the Quake players, like really top level, best Quake players in the world, try out Overwatch, and it wasn't as easy for them to pick up. You know, it's like it's just Overwatch is just not gonna be that ever. So you have to adapt. Obviously, um, like counters and stuff to people. That's like more of a MOBA element. Overwatch is definitely more than just an FPS. It takes skills from all kinds of different games like FPS and MOBA. So you have to just learn these skills. It's just an extra skill cap more than just aiming. Obviously, there are some classes where you don't have to aim at all.
Yeah.
It's just different skills to master. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's just in the game, and if you don't like it, you just I don't know, just don't play it, or play a
exactly.
or play another dead FPS game. You know?
Oh god.
Dead. Wow.
Oh man, that
Damn.
one hurt.
Wow.
That one hurt.
All right.
It's true though. I
mean,
mean,
if
it's a
true,
different
it's
game.
true. Like that's just what people want. You can't create just a straight up hardcore FPS game nowadays and expect people to care. You know, there's just so many of them, and so many people have tried. There's Toxic, Dirty Bomb, Reflex. You know, now UT4 is out and coming out and stuff. It's just like it's going to be the same players who have played those games for the past 15 years in those games, and the skill ceiling is so high for them that they're just going to stomp everyone. Who any new player that wants to play those games is just going to be so discouraged to play, and there's not going to be a big viewership. You know, it sucks that like the arena FPS scene is kind of dying out, and the hardcore FPS scene is like non-existent except for CS:GO in terms of esports. But I don't know. It's what it is. It is what it is. You just gotta if you want to succeed in a game that isn't CS:GO right now, it's going to be an Overwatch. And if and you gotta just learn these counters and stuff to other heroes. Like yeah, it's kind of frustrating that you can't do anything about a Winston jumping on you as a Zenyatta, but that just goes to show how much of how much teamwork is important in this game. So you may not need to learn raw aim skill as much, but teamwork is definitely a skill that you need to learn for every hero in this game if you want to play competitively. It's just different skill sets. That's all.
Teamwork and strategy. It just requires much more strategy than just pure mechanics. Our Curie Mitten asks, any room for non-healer supports? Hard to justify them on a competitive team comp without a big impact somehow. We talked about this a little bit with the May discussion, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Shayed, I'll have you just take this first, and then we'll just all jump in here.
I think with how strong Lucio is right now, a utility support could technically work. I don't know if I would really consider May to be a support.
No,
I know we've
not, but we talked a little bit about.
She is very strong utility, so I think that, like I said, there is a spot for her maybe on Koth maps that people haven't really figured out yet. But yeah, as of right now, if Lucio continues to be the way that he is, there could potentially be room for utility support. But if they change him at all or downgrade his healing or anything like that, then it's probably not going to be the case.
Yeah, I generally agree. I'm almost a little surprised that we don't have more status affecting abilities, if that makes sense, in the game. I actually don't play MOBAs, so I might be making all of this up, but I'm pretty sure that MOBAs have stuff that's like maybe you build ult some kind of ability that helps your team build your ult faster, or some kind of ability that like has like a huge AoE and like slows the enemy team, or makes them like 10% squishier in a range or something like that. Like, I'm kind of surprised we don't have more of that in Overwatch. I'd like to see it, honestly. I think stuff like that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, aura type of effects. Okay, Stoop, what about you?
I don't know. There's just not that many choices when it comes to healers. I feel like Lucio is good, right? He's got heals, but he's used for more than just heals. Like oftentimes his amp up ability or whatever it's called is used to speed boost rather than heal. If you have to use it to heal, then your team is taking too much chip damage, and it's going to be hard for you to initiate the next time because your heal boost is down. So there's more than just healing for Lucio.
It's an entire engage and disengage mechanic behind it too.
Pretty much. And like, there's just no other really strong single target healers other than Mercy, who isn't really used anymore. I don't know. I just think there just needs to be more healers in the game in general. Right now, it's like there's 3. Symmetra is kind of there. Heal themselves. Some I don't know. It's just not a lot of variety when it comes to support play. You know, maybe the best thing is to not even use like all that much healing. Just use a Lucio for the engagement utility, and maybe May or something instead of a second healer, and just say screw the healing. We'll just kill everyone before it's even required. I don't know. Who knows? Some of this stuff hasn't been tried out yet. But right now for medics, it seems really boring for like Minstrel who has to play Lucio 24/7.
Right.
At least Esper can play something other than Mercy now, but still the fact remains that Lucio's in 100% of the games. I don't know if they need to really nerf him. I just think they need to buff other medics or, you know, add another one or something. It's just, it's just probably the blandest role right now.
I think one of the coolest things they could probably do, like while Overwatch beta was down and I was like racking my brain trying to figure out something to do in the meantime, I spent time playing TF2 like medic and just trying to get good with the Crusader crossbow as healing. And I think that something like that in Overwatch would be like not only just really fun to play, but also like really good. Like if you made it really high risk, but you know, also, or not really high risk, but really high reward, but extremely hard to play. So like an aim-based healer, a skill-based healer would be really fun because that doesn't exist right now. It's you shift the Zenyatta orb, you left-click the Mercy heal, you exist as Lucio. Like
the games I played before, a game called Loadout was it's like one of the first quote-unquote arena shooters I played. But the whole thing about that is that they were also healers, right? That you can craft a gun that healed your teammates, and the whole thing was you had to literally shoot your teammates to heal them. And so there's FPS skill involved. There's positioning, awareness involved in it. I don't know, something like that could be nice instead of just holding left click.
I like it.
In the general direction of a teammate. Whatever. More skill based stuff is nice. Always nice.
FishStix, you even mentioned that when we were talking about it yesterday or the day before that you'd even just like to see a support that just drops out medkits or drops out some type of healing candy, I guess I like to call it.
Yeah, it's kind of like I'm just fantasizing about basically putting a Wolfenstein enemy territory-esque medic right into the game.
Right.
Just take it right from Dirty Bomb or enemy territory, stick it in Overwatch.
Sparks from Dirty Bomb where she just drops med packs everywhere.
Yep.
I mean, the med packs and defibrillator paddles, I think, could be kind of cool in Overwatch. I don't know.
I'd like to see them be like destructible though. Like if you're going to be able to create med packs for your team, I think the enemy should be able to destroy them.
Yeah, that's fair. Right. I think that's very fair. Okay,
don't want to see rezzing like having to give dead bodies. I don't know.
I don't see Blizzard ever putting another res mechanic.
I don't think. We have the res mechanic, and they're working on that. And
fine.
I like Dirty Bomb. Don't get me wrong, it was fun
for everybody.
It's just really hard to balance the game around rezzing and having to give people and all that stuff. But anyway, moving on.
Okay, last question here by Yiska. How do we manage to get the best viewership numbers out of our relatively low player base even after launch? Well, the player base won't be low after launch, so I don't think that will be an issue, but I guess maybe just during this beta phase, is there a way we could get more interest, or is it just a lost cause at this point, just trying to
invite more people to the beta?
That's the player base, right?
I'm so tired of playing as the same 12 people literally every day. Like, please invite more people to the beta, please.
I mean, it's pretty obvious that our potential viewers are basically tied to our potential player base, right? So right now, the people watching these tournaments, I would assume at least a good portion of them are people who are in the game already, who are competitive FPS players. Obviously, there has to be some folks who are only watching these competitions, but after the beta's the closed beta has been out since what, like early November, something like that.
Yeah.
That's a lot of months to watch streams, videos, tournaments. Someone who doesn't have the game can only watch. I actually didn't mean to do that. But
you said
can
only watch
only
twice
watch-
now.
Jeez.
You
I
said
didn't
it
mean to.
twice. Oh
I didn't
my
mean to.
God.
God damn it.
Okay.
You can only watch so much, right?
You can
You're not
only
even
watch-
trying, man. Come on, get out of
Good.
here.
Oh my gosh.
I'm trying to make
You're
a
just
point here.
purposefully doing it.
Yeah.
So obviously it is tied to the player base, but I do think there's things we can do, such as bigger prize pool, cross-continent play. Right now everything's an open tournament, so I think there's room for exhibition matches to do okay. Maybe not exhibition, but like an invitational or something like that. I think production value still has a long ways to go in the game. Like, we're just learning how to spectate right now, and I think in an ideal world, you've got to have multiple cameras and a producer to make this game like really watchable. So I think all of those things are on the table and probably can and will happen before the game comes back. But really, I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? Once more people are playing the game, more people are going to be interested in watching
Yeah.
competitions. One thing I'd like to see, I will say, almost nobody is streaming scrims or matches right now. Obviously, everyone wants to guard their secrets, their strategy, how their teams communicate. Personally, on a personal level, like, I hate this. Like, I want to watch high-level gameplay all the time. If people were streaming matches and scrims on a daily basis, I would just never stop watching this high-level gameplay. And I think
It's
there's
the
probably a
comms.
lot of
Addict.
No team wants you
Yeah,
to
it's
know
the
what
comms.
they talk like to
Addict.
each other,
exactly. No one wants to reveal that.
which is
But I
completely
think-
understandable.
Very understandable. I think the
Yeah.
first people who are like, screw it, well, everything's out in the open, we're streaming everything, I think they're going to do very, very well. And actually, IDDQD is like the first top team that has been streaming a lot of their scrims. It's
Yeah,
like the
it's
only
big.
way I've been seeing NV scrims is watching from like Taimu or TVX's point of view. But yeah, I think that's going to have a big impact once people finally do start streaming high-level gameplay. It's just not really happening right now.
But that doesn't happen in other esports. I mean, you don't see scrims being streamed.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Maybe
one of
you're
those-
right.
There's
I
a
don't
lot
know.
more on the line.
Yeah. I mean, true.
I mean, comms is way too much to give up. It's
yeah,
too
that's
much.
a lot. That is a lot.
Your
to
team,
give up.
your enemy team, knowing how you talk to your teammates and just the dynamic
Fair
of
enough.
the team is just
Right.
like that's too much to give
You're
up.
so hardcore, Fish. He just wants it.
I
He's
am.
just such an addict here, man. Just can't get enough of it. But
Uh,
that's cool. Definitely cool.
Back to that question. I think these weekly tournaments are nice for everyone to just watch very consistently every weekend, see all these top teams, but it can get kind of stale. I think if there were some like much bigger, like more spread out tournaments where there's a lot more on the line, a lot more hype generated around who's going to win the big prize pot, kind of stuff like that. That would definitely increase the viewership. Just to know that there's big stuff coming. I know Blizzard is going to be probably doing their own tournaments too. Maybe not soon, probably after the game releases. But yeah, stuff like that. Bigger tournaments, more spread out, would definitely increase the viewership, including these consistent ones too. They're good, obviously, for consistent viewership. Well, like Gosu Gamers and ESL.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the discussion of oversaturation, I think just to articulate thoughts one more time, I think kind of one of the potential roadblocks, the potential problem is it becomes difficult for the community to know which tournament matters and which doesn't. And to Stoop's point, I think as soon as someone does come out with a $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 prize pool, that is going to be very clearly the biggest tournament yet. And I think that should have a lot of hype behind it. I would expect a lot better viewership for a tournament like that.
Okay. Well, I think
Speaking of scrims,
yeah.
Stoop needs to go.
Yeah, I should probably
Yep,
get
exactly.
going.
I think we should wrap up the show. But Stoop, awesome having you on, man. It's great having some good discussions with you. Hope you had fun.
Definitely. Thanks to you guys, and thanks to Shayed for, I guess, getting me in touch with ChanMan, and I guess also for getting us in touch with Astro to begin with. Maybe that wouldn't have happened.
Nice.
But yeah, big thank you to you, and thanks to the rest of you guys for having me, and the Overwatch community for being awesome people, and all the envious fans, and my sponsors and all that. Yeah, that's it.
You're gonna have to practice the
Yeah, he's still
sponsor
new
speech,
to
man.
that,
You're
man.
gonna have to get there eventually.
I did my best.
Okay.
Why don't we just wrap everybody up? Shayed, shout outs?
Yeah, thanks to everybody watching the podcast.
Yeah.
And I had a really awesome stream this morning. It was super fun. So thanks to everybody that was there then and is watching now. It was awesome. And yeah, thanks for Stoop for being on the show.
Fish?
Yeah, I'll echo some of my sentiments from last week. You know, this game is very young. So every one of you that's supporting the competitive scene in this early stage, we super appreciate it. If you're tuning into tournaments, watching the competitive streams, tuning into the podcasts, I want to give a shout out actually to our competitor podcast, Solid Jake GG, put together a really nice show with Joshi as well. That's great and talking about a lot of the same stuff. So keep watching, keep following. Keep supporting the competitive scene. More stuff is coming in the future. Sit tight. Can't announce anything yet, but would love to cast and host another tournament for you guys. So working on some stuff on the back end. Hopefully we'll be able to announce in the somewhat immediate future. But yeah, just get out on, make sure that you get your voice out there on Reddit and on social media, and just let people know that why you're interested in the competitive scene, and we'll keep producing this content for you happily.
Yep. And I just wrap things up again. Yeah, thanking the three of you guys for doing the show today, and all the viewers for coming and checking out the overview. The VODs will be on youtube.com/ChanManV shortly after the show, and we'll be doing this weekly. Might switch. We're still trying to nail down just a regular day, just because we've been having some, just different things going on with the three of us. But I'll let you guys know exactly what day we finally land on, so that you guys can just prepare and just be ready for the show every week. But yeah, that's going to be it for the overview this week. So for Stoop, Shayed, FishStix, and myself, ChanManV, we'll see you next time. Peace.
Bye.
Everyone.